Hey everyone, this is my Unreal Engine quick start guide. So the first thing you'll see is this window open. Just click the Games tab and select the game type that best suits what you plan to build. For now, maybe stay away from a blank project so that you have some sort of starting point and some references available to you for learning. Give your project a name and click Create. When Unreal Engine opens up, you'll see something that looks like this. First off, this big window right here, we'll call this the viewport. This is going to let you see what's in your scene or the map, whatever you want to call it. Let's just get comfortable navigating around. So most 3D software, the bulk of what you're going to be doing for kind of navigation is going to rely on your mouse. Usually what I do to get my bearings is do a quick test to see what left mouse click, right mouse click, and the wheel do. So in Unreal Engine, holding left click and moving your mouse lets you pan around the scene. I don't really find this too useful. Getting a bearings for what all the different controls are. So left click lets you pan, mouse wheel in and out, zooms, pressing it in lets you go up and down, so you can change the pitch of your camera by sliding the mouse around, and then right click lets you just look around. If you hold right click to look around, you can then use the WASD keys like you would in a video game, and that'll let you kind of move around the scene. So this is my preferred method for looking around the scene and kind of getting to the objects that I want to get to. You can left click on anything in the scene. Next, other than the viewport, to the right of that over here is the outliner. So in here you can see everything that is, you can see a kind of file folder view of everything that is in your scene. So clicking on anything in here will highlight it in the scene. Double clicking it will bring you straight to it. So if you open up anything else, directional light, block, you can see it just brings you to it. And then again, just hold right click, WASD, give yourself a better angle of looking at whatever you need to. Other than that, everything that you click over in the outliner or anything that you select here, one will be highlighted, and then also the details of what that object is below. And then you can see all these different tabs and everything that, all the properties of that object. So that's basic navigation and how to kind of go about all the different objects in your scene. Next up, the play button here. So this play button at the top is going to be very important. So if you click that, you'll see the game starts, and once you touch or click your mouse anywhere inside of the viewport, it kind of disappears and you're kind of fully into the game mode. Your WASD will let you move around, or depending on whichever game type you selected, you'll have different controls. So you can move around. It already gives you the basics of what you need to get started on like a third-person game. All these blue objects are interactable and they have physics working on them. And when you're done kind of testing the game out, since you don't have your mouse, all you have to do is press the escape key, and then you'll be back into your normal mode. So that's how you playtest, run your game, debug through different problems or try things out. Next, if you want to add something new to your game, you have the option of this plus button up here. If you click this, you can add basic things like shapes, lights, whatever else that are here, although this isn't typically the way I would go about adding content, but I'll get to that in a second. But if you do want to use this, just go over, it does behave a little bit differently than what you would expect. So for example, if you just wanted to grab like a shape, instead of clicking it, you would click and hold and then drag it into your scene. Once you have the object in your scene or any other objects in your scene, to interact with it is very similar to most 3D software. Up here you can see you have your typical select objects, and then you have the translate, rotate, and scale. So it's pretty common. So up here, if you click this gives you access to these different axes, and if you click and drag on them, you can move it along that axis. Clicking the rotate, same thing. You can rotate this way, just grabbing the different handles that it gives you. And lastly, scale. So you can scale one direction, or if you grab this white one in the middle, you can scale the whole thing up. And then grab this, put it down, for example, hit play again. Now you have this. Alright, so that's kind of adding objects, interacting with objects. Next up, we have the different modes you can do. So that was one way of adding an object. Another way to do that is you go over to modeling here. The big ones are going to be just selection and modeling, landscape and foliage if you plan to be doing kind of more of an outdoor scene and want to be doing a larger kind of area landscape. Other than that, I don't really use mesh painting or fracture or any of these on a regular basis. So for now, let's just kind of focus on selections, what you're going to be in most of the time. But modeling is another good way of blocking out kind of your scene, or adding or making kind of quick edits to something without having to jump into maybe a 3D software like Blender or something. So again, to do the same thing we just did of adding an object, instead of, if you do it through the modeling mode, you can click something like a box, and then this will just straight away, so you don't drag and drop it like last time. It kind of gives you interactable box that you can make changes to here with different properties before kind of locking in. You can't interact with it with the same tools from in your scene, but you can change it here. So you can say increase the width, increase the depth, whatnot, and then just when you're done, you hit accept here at the bottom. And this puts the object now into your scene, and now you basically have access to these different tools again like any other object. Other than that, for creating, get comfortable with these different things, play around. Again, don't really use this too much other than just kind of blocking out some stuff in the map. And then you can switch back to selection mode and hit play. Now we have this box in our scene as well. So those are the various different modes. Next, down here in the bottom left, you'll see the content drawer. If you click that, this will pop open. In our content, you'll see various different folders. What I've been doing lately now is, because this comes with a bunch of just different starting content, I'll go in here, create a new folder, and call this my content with an underscore, just so that it kind of floats to the top here. You can put like a 1 or anything you want, but that's really just what I'm trying to do. And then in here you can create materials or models. You can see as I right click, this window is much more extensive than, for example, up here, kind of adding through this way or through the modeling up here. The bulk of the way that I would add content into the scene will typically be through the content drawer over here. So just for an example, like if we're in the material section, you'd right click, go to material, create a material, there it is, double click it, you open it up, you can make edits to your material, adding kind of blueprints in general. So if we do blueprints, right click in here, blueprint class, actor, BP something, double click that, this will open up a blueprint. Don't worry too much about that. Next up is right beside the detail section, you should see something called world settings. If you don't see that, open window, come down here, make sure world settings is clicked. And the big thing you need to just care about is just the game. Under game mode, you'll see by default you have this game mode override, and it has some game modes here. So might get into this a little bit more as well in a future video, but just understanding that this exists and knowing a little bit about how Unreal uses this. For example, you'll see that there's this player start right here, And what's going to happen is this will get replaced with, or not replaced, the default pawn class is going to automatically instantiate where the player start is. And so you can see you can give it a pawn class. This one is BP third person character. If we were to go to third person blueprints, you'll see this is what it's trying to reference. If you double click this, and this will open up the blueprint. If you click over here to the viewport, you'll see this is the character and this is the camera over here. And what's going to happen is this whole blueprint is going to get instantiated right where that player start is, so that when you click start, hit play, boom, this default pawn class is going to spawn there, and then that's how it kind of kicks off the game. Again, if we open up this blueprint, you'll see this is what's containing all the instructions for handling the inputs, the camera, the movement, and jumping. So this is all built inside of this. Now, before we finish off the video, the other things that I would recommend just being aware of is under edit, there is the plugins. Let's do plugins first. So you'll have a bunch of different plugins by default as you're going through and making changes. You may need to enable other different plugins that are here, like adding paper 2D functionality, for example. And lastly, we'll just look at the project settings. So, and this is where you're going to tweak all your defaults, physics, inputs, etc. So hopefully this helped demystify Unreal Engine a little for you. I would recommend getting comfortable with these concepts and then moving on to learning blueprints next, so that way you can add your own custom gameplay functionality. And as always, like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.